Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Debbie, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. And today we have a very special guest speaker, Alecia Rathbone from the Housing Hub. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi, Debbie.
Great to have you.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, we've been speaking a lot lately. We were at the Melbourne SDA Conference with you, and you did promise Min that you would come on an episode. Yep. So finally.
Yeah, so here we are.
We've locked you down. You're a very busy woman, I know.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, wonderful to have you. So I guess, a lot of our listeners may not actually know who Housing Hub are. So I think if you can give us a little bit of an overview of Housing Hub, what you do, the services that you offer, so that everyone knows what we're talking about now.
Okay, I can do that. So we started it about 5 years ago, and we started with two ideas. The first was really around a website. We wanted to make something that was like a realestate.com or domain that meant people with a disability could find housing that suited their needs, but also have a really great experience with, quality photos, floor plans, great information, just like everyone else would expect. So we had the website, and then also we've done some services over that time as well, working with people with disability to help people get SDA funding in their plans and get an offer from a provider to move into the home that's just right. So right now, we still have the website, and it's grown a lot over the last 5 years. And we also have a range of services. So one of them would be specialist support coordination, which is for housing only. So any home and living funding support that a participant might need to secure, we're able to work with that participant just for that time and help them get that funding. We don't do ongoing support coordination. And we also have a couple of philanthropically funded programs which work to support people living in hospital is one, to get out of hospital and into the right type of housing, but also people living in residential aged care. We have a number of other services around capacity building for the sector as well. So we work with people with disability to build their capacity and knowledge around different housing options. And as part of that, we run workshops, we have resources on our website, and we also have a free SDA housing phone line that they can call to ask questions. And we also work with providers as well around consultancy services. So people will come to us and say, how do I find tenants, or how do I screen people for SDA eligibility? So those sorts of things, we've got our team providing that sort of support. So a whole range of things, Debbie.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So now you were connected with or part of the Summer Foundation, but I believe that now that is in the process of basically being split into two separate organisations.
Yes, so we're in that process at the moment. So we've definitely been incubated, seeded by the Summer Foundation and a part of the Summer Foundation for the last 5 years. And now we're in a process of becoming a registered NDIS provider to do the support coordination work I mentioned and help people with their home and living funding. So as part of that, we're going through the process of becoming a provider, and we've set up a new charity that will be where the Housing Hub lives in the future. So I'm not sure exactly when that will all happen, but we're working through those processes at the moment.
Great. Now, I also know that Housing Hub, you used to also concentrate on the participant procurement area, which I believe you're no longer doing.
Yeah, so we did that for the first 5 years. We've always thought this was something we'd offer the market when it was in its really early stages. So when we started that work in 2018, there was pretty much no demand side because SDA was so new. The NDIA hadn't, sort of got to the point of helping to create that demand. So I guess our view at the time was that if we did that work for a few years, we thought it would only be a couple of years. We could help the early stage providers make sure they found tenants and got people funding, and then the NDIA would take over from there. So it was something we always thought we'd do short term, and we've made that decision earlier on this year to move into that. So the work we do now with participants is very much about that, building people's capacity and sharing information, helping people come to the website, search, and then apply for properties.
Good stuff. Yeah. And that's what I want to start really talking to you about today is, firstly, the Housing Hub portal. Obviously, it provides you guys with a wealth of information on housing seekers, their supporters, what they're looking for. And this is something that you also do, which is data research, and you do paid data research. People can actually purchase that from the Housing Hub. So can you tell us more about that? I mean, obviously that's quite a big thing, part of your system. But what is that data that you are collecting? What is it telling you?
Sure. So we've got a few different ways, like you mentioned, from the website directly. People will search on the site, and that will tell us an indication of people's, demand potentially. What are people searching for? What are they with their behaviours saying it is they want? We also have people who make a profile on the website as a seeker, so they can set up a profile asking and putting in what type of properties they want. So that helps people search and get alerts when new properties are added. So we've got these two different data sources. We also do work with housing seekers and supporters and providers as part of our quarterly user groups that people can be part of, which also tell us what they want from the Housing Hub and how we can make it better. So I think maybe start with some of that information, which might be of interest to some listeners. At recent groups, it was quite interesting, a few points I pulled out from that, from housing seekers in particular. So probably the listeners, potential customers, are really conscious of looking for quality information. And something we've learned from people is there's a little bit of suspicion around, there's a lot of claims of free things, or, you put your information into this thing and, you'll get some information back, but actually now someone's going to contact you. So I think that, we're just really conscious of making sure we're very transparent about what we do and what we do with people's data and how we use it. So as part of that, anyone who uses our site, especially as seekers, we provide information about how that would be used. And it's actually one of our promises to housing seekers. If you go to the effort to tell us in your profile what information you want, we will also make sure your voice, in a de-identified way as a seeker, is helping to shape the market. So that's really like where our motivation comes from for a lot of this. It is also a way for us to help cover the costs of the website, which has been completely free for providers. So free reports we release would be our housing seeker snapshot and our listing snapshot. So they currently come out every 6 months and are free to download on our website. So some of the data from the latest seeker snapshot, which was in November 22, it showed us the most alarming stat for me on that is that 67% of people living with a disability are unhappy with their current housing situation. And a lot of that number are very dissatisfied. So that's terrible. And that's something that we as a sector can really do something about, and is, I think, what motivates a lot of us to be involved in this work. Also, most people on our website are looking for a rental property. So over 85% of people that are doing searches are looking for rentals. So not necessarily just for sale, or short and medium term is also in there as well. And about 40% of the people using the website are looking to live on their own. Yeah.
So that kind is really so surprising, given the number of people I believe that are funded to live on their own. So that brings me to the next question, was that what do you think people are actually searching for? Is it what they want, not what they're funded for? Okay, when we're talking about just people looking for SDA rentals here.
I think it's a mix. We would say that a lot of the people who use our website are supporters. So we've got our 3 key groups we work with being providers of housing, seekers, and their supporters. And so a lot of people would have a support coordinator who would be helping them search. And I would say, a lot of the support coordinators will understand what's in people's plan and be searching for what funding that person has, whether that be an SDA property or a property that has supported independent living within the property. Yeah, so I'd say it's a real mix, but certainly a lot of people do want to live on their own or with their family. And that has been a real challenge in terms of approvals recently. But it's definitely through our data. Yeah, it's not half. It's below half, so about 40%.
Yeah. But that's still a pretty significant amount.
Yeah,
and certainly we know that is not the funding that people are getting.
Yes, yeah.
For sure. So, yeah. Okay, so I guess moving on from what you're seeing coming out there people obviously can list the properties as well, providers, housing owners. So what are your recommendations based on what people are searching for that they can do it better? They can have their listings more visible to people, giving them the information they need.
Absolutely. Great. I've got lots of ideas on this. So we have done a piece of work where we had a number of people who live in SDA working for us and going through listings. So some providers would have got phone calls from those people giving them some of these tips. But I would say the biggest tip would be to make sure that first photo is really inviting. So we have done some data analysis that shows that there is a correlation between that main photo that you put up and whether people will click through actually and view the detail of the listing compared to others. So that would be the most important thing. So that first photo needs to show something really appealing, addressed property if you can, and make sure that's, selling that opportunity for that person to visualize themselves there and think of how it would be to live. Other things that have come up recently through some of those user groups I mentioned would be around photos, making sure there's a photo of every single room, maybe even if you feel like you're doing too many photos so that you show the bathroom from different angles. Are there any steps anywhere at all? That people can be confident through the photos that they're not going to get there and then encounter a step up into the shower or something like that. And I think also the outside areas have become very important. So seekers are saying, I want to see a photo of the front door and I want to understand what that looks like going up to the front door of either the property or if it's an apartment block, what does that look like? What does the road look like outside, the surrounding areas? What is the parking situation like? Can I see a photo of that to really understand how big it is? So I think photos, like really good quality photos that show a lot, not just one or two or three photos.
And I was going to say, I'd imagine a video. I assume that you got the capability of uploading videos too.
Yeah, we do. A video is great.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah. And we've got it through a link. So you just really, any YouTube video, if you've got it on there, you can link to it or on your own website. So it's really through a link. And I think floor plans, Debbie, I can't underestimate. And I just would ask everyone listening, would you apply for a rental property if you couldn't see the floor plan? So I know sometimes that involves a little bit more extra effort. There's a little bit more explanation that might be required depending on different configurations, but well worth having a floor plan. People are telling us it's really important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any other things? So photos, floor plan, videos?
Yeah. Common thing I'm seeing a lot is on our website, the way the search really works is about, are you looking for SDA or non-SDA housing? And then are you looking to rent or buy? And then are you looking for a whole home or to share with other people? A lot of providers at the moment seem to be saying that it's a whole home and a share house, or they're kind of mixing. They'll say it's a whole home, but you can live with other people with disabilities. So I think people might be thinking about, let's just tick everything and keep our options open. But what's resulted is significant confusion for people on the other side. So the seekers, the supporters contacting us saying, I'm searching for myself and all I see is share houses. So it's a piece of work we need to go through and work with providers.
Don't work very well in that kind of situation.
Very confusing. Yeah.
Okay, so be really specific about what is being put up there. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, not a lot of our listeners, I'd imagine those who are looking as an investment from the investment side of things are probably going to be doing this themselves, but certainly we would have some developers that are looking to use Housing Hub. So that's certainly valuable information for them to know.
Yeah.
I want to talk more again about the data.
Sure.
Obviously, your data that you actually charge for that is more in depth than your regular 6 monthly snapshots. What sort of information do you feel that is putting out there? Is that information that might help developers better design and build to the demand? Where do you feel that information is of use?
Yeah, so we've got two different data reports, and I feel like the use case would probably be described as, one would be, I've identified my location, I've done my numbers, and I've worked out, I think this is a good place, I think it's going to work for an SDA property with the design standards, and I think people are interested. So if you know the location, we have a market data report where you can get data on a particular local government area and say, I'm just interested in this location, give me all the data on it. And there's an alternative one, which is also, it's the same information, but it's every location in Australia. So they've got a different price accordingly. So there's those two different use cases. We think it could be used to help just validate some of the other assumptions that are already going into an investment decision around the property. and can help to show, in the absence of quality demand data, we don't yet have that yet from the NDIA. We've got some, and they are making an effort to improve that each time. But I think it can help complement that to say, well, I think, this location's good. And then you can go on there and say, oh, look, there's this many people searching for the design category in this location, this occupancy level, this type of support model. Okay. And then you can look at the supply side and say, well, this is how many properties are on the housing hub that are similar in that location. And also you can see the NDIA data. So it tries to bring it all into one place. So if you want to use that, then you end up with a spreadsheet that effectively means you've got the NDIA data and the housing hub data all in the one place. You can filter on all those different types of elements, so whether it's the design category, the occupancy, as I mentioned, location, and really try to get a view of what's going on in that location. So we think it can help make, with those decisions, help validate some of that decision-making that providers would be going through.
Yeah. And now, from my understanding, you get that information. Obviously, some of it comes from your Housing Hub search portal, and you also do a survey of providers on their SDA construction every year as well. And so some of that information comes from that source.
Yes, absolutely. So each year, I think we're in our 6th year. We're just about to launch it for this year. So it's called the SDA Supply in Australia Survey. And we've been working with providers for all that time to ask what's in the pipeline and understand that data. So that NDIA does offer providers the opportunity to pre-enroll dwellings, but our survey starts from the time that land is acquired. So it's going back a bit further. And again, that can also help. That data is also in the spreadsheet I mentioned, and it can also help providers to see what's coming down the pipeline as well. So not just what's enrolled, not what's just advertised and vacant on the housing hub, but also what might be coming.
Yeah. Now, you just mentioned that you thought it was an option for people to supply. I thought the NDIA pipeline data was based on the pre-construction SDA certification.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So it should be the majority that are at that stage.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going to be 100% built, but we assume the majority of them are, and whether that's 80%, 90%, we don't know. So your information goes beyond that. And I know I have actually compared both the NDIA pipeline and your own pipeline. And yeah, it does look quite different. In most cases, I think you have more information, which is great. So it's giving you a greater feel. In other cases, it's less. And I guess that's down to the providers that you are actually surveying in this report. So tell us about how many providers, which of the providers, what kind of a percentage of your market that you are assuming you're capturing in your survey.
I have that number off the top of my head, but I think what we usually do in each report is actually we ask the providers who have been involved in it, how many places of properties they have, and then actually compare that to the NDIA data to see what percentage it is of the entire market, for example, that's enrolled. So I can't recall the exact number from the last SDA supply survey, but we have just done the SDA provider experience survey, and that report will be coming out any day now. So that was about 25% of the market of all places. We also asked people, how much investment has been made. So we are able to show the level of investment as well. So we'll always include that in the report so that whoever's reading it can say, okay, I get a sense that this is about X percentage of the market, and be able to just factor that in when they're thinking about the results and applying that. But it won't be everyone. Like the NDIA will have everybody there who's up to a certain point. We'll go a bit earlier along the development pipeline, but we won't have everybody.
Yeah.
The NDIA will.
From memory, the last provider survey, I was thinking it was more like about the 60, 70% of data being captured. Obviously, that's a different survey you were just referring to now. It's about to come out. So I think with that, you are capturing a greater percentage.
Yeah, we definitely, from a research perspective, and it's the Summer Foundation research team that developed those. It's a good portion of the market that means we're confident that it is representative.
Yeah.
That's why we always make sure we include that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to try and get as much data from so many different sources as possible. We do quite a bit of data research ourselves. We provide that service to our buyers that by way of paid SDA supply and demand data reports. But we always say, go to the Housing Hub and and get their market data reports. Go to, I know Everhomes is another provider that does their own reports. It's so important to try and get different snapshots from different perspectives on what's going on, because the NDI data is just so lacking.
Yeah, it's quite simple at the moment. And I think one of the shortcomings, we just say we interpret it with caution around, when they're saying that there's this many people in a location looking for SDA, like we know from our experience, and we supported people to make applications for housing with providers, that, a good portion of those people could have an offer who are waiting for their property to be finished or waiting for their funding to be decided, and then they're going to move in. So just really conscious of that as well.
Yeah. And I guess also location in terms of where people are and where they're looking, that can be a little fluid, especially when it's only based on the SA4s or the SA3s, which are such broad areas. And, when you've got bordering SA3s and they're in one suburb that's at the edge of one, and the potential to move over into another suburb in a whole different SA3, SA4 is very likely for them at a physical level. It's, half a kilometre away. However, in the whole statistical side of things, it's in a completely different reporting.
Reported differently, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know of a better way to do it, but it's all got to be taken with, a lot of flexibility there, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why we say if someone comes to us and says, I've got my suburb and I want to report, we'll say make sure you look at the whole local government area for that reason, because people tend to move around and want to be close to their supports and family members and whatever people are doing for work or volunteering or community involvement. So yeah, I agree that we need to look around the area, but location is often the most important factor for people, just to be close to those things.
Absolutely. And that's something that we speak to a lot of investors who just think, well, if we build it here because we think a good location because it's close to these things and these facilities and the block of land is great. No, that doesn't matter. It's where people want to live. They have to be around their supports. That's such an important part of it. And near their families and near their social, if they work, that's all. So it's really important to be looking where they are looking.
Yes. Yeah, where people want to live.
Where they want to live, because they're not going to move across the other side of town just because the house is perfect.
Absolutely. I think, Debbie, just one thing we haven't mentioned as well about search would also be around the support model. So I think this is sometimes, especially when we all started, we were thinking we're building beautiful properties, we're focused on the design standards. Location, as we just talked about, is vital, but also just thinking about how is the support model going to be delivered in the home and what say do people have over that. We're seeing more and more through our data that a lot of people are saying, they're searching as well, they're saying, I want to bring my own supports or, just have access to some supports. So I think that's quite an interesting thing that we need to keep on in our minds when we're developing new properties on what that model will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And where I think our business is only really starting to understand the importance of the supports in an SDA home as part of an investment strategy and just taking that into account and being aware of that in terms of the participant procurement down the track for someone that's investing in a home, say a 2-bedroom house or 3-bedroom house they're looking to get 2 tenants into. It's so complex because it's not just about the house suits them, the location suits them, but the compatibilities, those supports with the other person. It's much easier if it's a single tenant property, then that's not such an issue. But when it's not just about participants' personalities needing to be matched, that they're going to get on with the other person, but there's so many other levels.
Yeah, and I agree with what you just said, like choosing your housemate is a huge part of that process of when you're finding your tenants and you found a group of people now who are going to be the two because they want to live together. I mean, that's a large process that I think sometimes can be underestimated how complex that is. Yeah,
totally. So in your back to the Housing Hub search portal, there is something that they can put their preferences in there with the supports that they need or are looking for.
That's right. Yeah. So when someone searches, they can say, this is the type of support I want. So I want day only, night only. I want on-site shared support. I need support 24/7, or I don't want anything because I'm going to bring my own. So providers are able to select multiple options there. So if you are quite flexible, you can show that we also encourage providers to, in their listing, actually have a description about how tenants decide who supports them, what supports people can bring in day to day, how people decide on what support provider is there for on-site support. So, yeah, there's lots of opportunities for providers to show that to tenants.
Yep. So, and you find, I'm guessing that this is the case, but the vast majority of your properties that are listed by the SDA provider?
It is a mixture, actually. So I'm seeing 3 groups. So, yes, often SDA providers. There's also some support providers who might have an arrangement with the SDA provider where they help to find the tenants.
Okay,
and so we have made a change on the website that allows whoever's listing the property would come up as the SDA provider by default. But in the SDA section, they can now say it's actually this is the name of the provider. And I think that's really important as well because tenants want to know that the support provider is separate to the housing provider. So being able to actually list this is the registered SDA provider, but this is who's helping to find the tenants. I think that helps people be really clear on who's the landlord, who's the support provider. Yeah,
definitely. And you said there was maybe 3?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the other one as well. I think is organisations that have emerged, like real estate organisations who are helping the providers find their tenants, or sometimes I'm seeing different arrangements where finding tenants is outsourced to different organisations. So
participant procurement services.
Yeah. See organisations like that.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. Okay, so I think, that brings me to my next question was who can list on this? But that you basically just covered that. So it's basically going to be providers, but I guess anybody can list.
It is, we definitely designed it. We designed it to say we want this to be a place that you can go to find an accessible property, and it doesn't need to be just for NDIS participants. So we have gone quite broad. So we do have some properties for purchase. It's not a lot, but the idea would be is, if there's a parent who's been had their property fitted out for their child, the child might have moved out. The parent might think, well, we want to downsize now and it's time to sell. If there's great accessible features there, we don't want them to get lost in the market. Hopefully they could be advertised on our site and that way they might be found. So that's how we've kind of gone broad with it. Yeah. So anyone can use it.
And is it just properties that are ready and available for tenancy that can be listed, or is there anyone listing properties that may be still under construction?
Yeah, there's a lot of properties under construction. So we say don't list, you could list it up to 9 months before it's ready, because we know that that's the timeline it takes sometimes to find the right people, do the compatibility you talked about, help people get their funding and move in. So we'd say don't put it on before 9 months, but just be quite transparent about that. And I would just say too, going back to the previous comment about photos, even if it's under construction, you can still show photos of the local area, the street frontage, those sorts of things that people are interested in.
Sure. And of course, the floor plan, you're always going to have that.
Get the floor plan, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so back onto your data research reports. If anybody is looking to get these, how do they actually get in touch with Housing Hub to order them?
Yeah, so people could get in touch by going onto the website, so housinghub.org.au. There's a section for providers at the top in the menu that includes information on the reports. We've also got an inquiry form there or a phone number of one of our team that you can speak to. Feel free to call us and ask any questions you might have. We're happy to do a demonstration or anything like that if that sort of, it's a bit confusing, I think, sometimes talking about data like this. Sometimes you just need to see it to get it. So I can also do that. Yeah.
Yep. So obviously you've got all your other services that you were talking about, your support coordination, the capacity building that you're working with providers, assisting them and training them as well. But for the average investor or developer who just wants more information, that's obviously the main thing you probably would offer them is the data research reports. But also, as you said, your 6 monthly snapshots are really useful information, and you must be having the next one close to publishing.
Should be coming soon. I would say that there's a lot of resources on the website as well, so they're free to download and look at, including these reports. But also a lot of FAQs about what is SDA that we've been developing and building on, video series on SDA, so people could look at all those things. The next report should be coming soon. We're going to do the SDA supply one first, so it'll be after that, so probably in the next couple of months. And we're going to do this time a combined seeker and listing snapshot so that all that data will be compared rather than having to open up both reports and have a look at it side by side.
Fantastic. That is so much information. So, for anyone listening out there and you just want to get more information on any aspect of SDA or even just disability, as you said. It's not just SDA, it's about people who are looking for some kind of an accessible house that at least may provide them with the living supports, supported independent living. You just got such a wealth of data on your website. And I know that you are separating but also plug for Summer Foundation. I know when we started a few years ago, I think everything we learned was from Summer Foundation Housing Hub. We just trawled all the information we could find, and it's a wealth of information there. So yeah, for anyone who does want to try and get as much information as you can, which we always recommend when you're looking at getting into this as an investment, do your research and really understand what you're getting into here, what it's all about. And don't go past the Housing Hub resources for that, because they are really incomparable.
Well, thanks, Debbie. Well, we're always open to feedback. So if there's any feedback anyone has, anything missing, anything else that people are looking for, just let us know.
Yeah. No, I think you're doing a fantastic job with what you're putting out. And obviously there are limits, as is anything when we're looking at data and what is accessible. And let's hope that the NDIA start to actually improve what they're reporting on. I think there is a lot can be done there.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, because you can already see the evolution of it over the last few years. You know, it's taking time, but each time you look at that quarterly report, you find something else that's in there. So, yeah, I'm confident it will keep developing over time.
Yeah. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with, Alicia?
I just would say, thinking about the reports and what providers tell us consistently in every report, even when the going's been a bit tough, looking at the latest provider experience report, it's been positive to see that things are improving, and there is some positivity emerging around timelines and how people are developing their properties and finding tenants. And every single time you always see the number one thing that people say is, we do this work because it makes a difference, and that's why people are here. So I think just, ending on that, that's the work we all want to do, is make sure that people with disability are living well in the community and they're helping shape the market with their information. That's what we're trying to do here. So
look, we see so much positivity as well. And I think, now that SDA is 5 years old, there's been a lot of lessons learned.
Yes.
Over those 5 years. And the industry as a whole has just gotten really good at doing this. So they know how to get the information that's needed as much as it can. And they know what people are looking for, and they know what works. As everyone is starting to really come together and do this as a collaborative effort in developing SDA.
Yes.
Getting it out there. So, and no small effort to Housing Hub for, really leading the way there.
Thanks.
So, thank you. Yeah, so I think that wraps up. Wonderful conversation with you today, Alicia. Thank you so much again for taking the time. And we will have the contact details listed at the bottom of on this episode description if anybody wants to get in touch with Housing Hub to get more information. And thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks, Debbie. Great to be part of it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and just share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.